Welcome to another episode of Unraveling Success. Super excited to have a fun mashup episode with my two arm floaties in business, Caitlin and Whitney from Aspire Insurance Group. For our mashup episodes, what we do is we review the past episodes for the quarter. This time, we're going to actually be doing two different mashup episodes, one for the past quarter's single episodes, and then we're going to do another mashup for episodes where where we had our couple series. So this one specifically is going to be on our guests who we had, Lindsay Keller, Joel Moelter, and Alexa Federico. So all really, 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 really different professions, kind of all over the board on this one. So but let's start with Lindsay Keller. I almost said Kelly, but Lindsay Keller. So Lindsay is an attorney, Keller Woods, out of Minneapolis, and I'm just a huge fan of hers. I follow her on social, and her and I stay in loose touch, and I just think she's a really great role model, is what I think about her. So. Let's just take a deep dive in with Lindsay. And do you guys want to share some of your takeaways with her and aha moments that you had?
Yeah, for sure. So for me anyways, one thing that I really got out of, listening to like how she operates and, what her story is, that she actually operates a lot like we do at Aspire, essentially, for like the culture that you're in. And you wouldn't think that, because like working in a law office, like that's got to be way different than working in an insurance agency. And so it was fun to like really listen to see where a lot of our values align within that, and having the positive mental attitude that really stuck with me. And it's still stuck with me after watching, where that's really where, if you're not going to be positive, even though we can't, change something, or something is going on that's not as positive, you're not really going to get anywhere with it. And so that's been something that like I do think from time to time. And so it was really fun to see that, and living intentionally after everything that she's gone through. And it just gives you that reminder of, just live intentionally, and you can kind of get through anything.
With that.
Yeah. I really liked how she talked about, sitting at each seat before she became managing partner. We've definitely seen that in Beth's leadership too, of, she's gone through all of these seats that we've all been in. And I think it really helps Beth in your leadership to know how to like support us where it's needed. So I feel like that can really relate with us as well. And then I really, really liked, bold wrote on my notebook, when she said that, each time she goes to the court, like her nerves set in every single time. And like she said, really, that's a good thing, because that means that she really likes it still, and it's not boring. And I think that's a great way to look at it. I mean, when we get stress in our jobs, or even in our daily lives too, it just means that, not all stress is bad stress. It can be good too. And it is a sign that you're not bored, which is always good to look at it that way too.
Yeah, you hit on something that's like such a big deal. I think we've talked about this within our team. Is I've read something, it's been within the last month or so, and just talking about how pressure is not a bad thing. Pressure, but how we frame it, if we're framing pressure as stress, and then it has this really bad connotation, then it really does become damaging. But if you look at it as pressure, as refining, or something that you're going to grow through, or that type of thing, how you frame it is actually what it is more of a determining factor of if it is something that's damaging, or if it's something that causes you to level up. Yeah, that's a really good point.
I think in those moments, it is sometimes hard to remember that it is a good thing. But, I think just trying to keep that reminder for yourself that it keeps things exciting and not boring.
That's
sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. Some of the things that I wrote down about Lindsay is that I really thought, the longevity that she's had specifically at her workplace is really impressive to me. And I feel like it's a good example of when you do allow yourself to be planted in a place that is a great place to be for a long term, like where you can actually end up, which I think is really, really cool. And I think one of the things, and I think tying into what you said, Caitlin, is, we kind of approach insurance as the heart of a servant or a helping profession or an advocate. And that is how she approaches her law. She really has an advocate's heart. And you can feel that. Like, she's very passionate about it, and you can feel that from her when she shows up. It's a very authentic passion. And I admire that so much when your why has everything to do with bettering other people and lifting other people up and putting other people in a better spot, rather than why being as shallow as something monetary. So to me, I think that's probably one of the keys to her success, is that she's authentically passionate about being an advocate for the people that she's representing. And as a byproduct to that, she's successful, but it's not because she sought out to make a ton of money. It's because she sought out to authentically help grow. And when you have that heart, naturally, then things do end up falling in place. So, that was. I also thought with her, with Lindsay in specific, she is so kind-hearted, and I just, doesn't she just bend your perspective of what a litigation attorney is?
Yeah, right. Totally.
Yeah, I'm like,
For sure.
It's not, definitely, if you would have, you meet her, outside of it, or, even just tuning into the podcast, it's what? This is not what we, and, that a lawyer would be.
Totally.
Essentially.
And I'm like, wait a minute, the movies all lied to us, you guys. Litigation attorneys are not all giant jerk bulldogs. The actors
right.
dressed in cute clothes, and I just was. I really think though that I like that about her, because she doesn't fall into, I would say, what most people's perception of stereotypical of what a litigation attorney appear as. So
yeah,
very inspirational. The other thought I had, just kind of tying up things with Lindsay, was she shared a little bit about her son and navigating autism and that type of thing. And I just thought, we all navigate so much, and there's so much behind the scenes, and we're so complex between work and what's going on at home, and that's a lot, and I'm sure it's created different priorities for her at home. But it just is one of those things where I thought, everybody's kind of navigating something in life. It's a little bit different, but just really giving each other grace, because you just don't know, what they're navigating at work or what they may be navigating at home.
Yeah, for sure.
Those are big things. So.
Yeah. And I feel like that intention piece that she talked about can play into that.
Yeah.
Too. And you can feel that for sure.
I agree. Yeah. Great role model. Well, let's hop next and let's chat a little bit about Joe Moelter. So Boulder Hills Lawn Care Landscaping. Tell me what your guys' takeaways, what your ahas were with Joe.
Yeah. For me, when he had talked about, what success means to him, and he talked about staying curious. And I think that's phenomenal. I think that, it can kind of play into intention too, of just for us with our clients, of just we talk about it too, of like staying curious, just asking more questions, but also to help support them a little bit more and provide not just like we're insurance people, but also just being curious and just making conversation with them. I feel like it can go a long way for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. For me, I've had the pleasure of working with Joe for a while now, and like just listening to, like, he wears a lot of hats. He has a lot of great ideas, lots of businesses, but then also he helps other people grow their businesses. So that's been something that's kind of cool to see him jump into. And some of the notes that like I wrote down, and as I was listening, like he essentially thought like the path to success, chasing the American dream all the time, but feeling unfulfilled and trying to figure out why that is. And I think we see it, like, everybody go through that. And it can be in any spot in life and career, and just trying to figure out like how, like, what is going to fill my cup. And he was really open about his faith. And that's something that, we can be open with too. And the question which is so funny to me, because like I will tend to do this, where throughout the day, no matter like what you're doing, and when you're really pondering on something, and he's like praying about a certain situation. And so I was like, oh, like I'm not the only one that's done that before, because I mean, it's like in the car, like, that this is what I'm doing, and that type of thing, when you're really kind of eating at something, and really asking the question too, is that did I fulfill God's will? And so that was something too where I was like, oh yes, like that, it just as a business owner and as he's helping others too and growing, it's still keeping that in the front of his mind and his why. It's like, for me, that gets me going. So it's always nice to have like other people sharing that, and being able to do that.
Yeah. I really like how open about his faith he is as well. And I feel like I see more and more business owners being willing to do that, whereas maybe in the past it hasn't been so much like that. And I know, I think too, when you get to a certain point in business, you kind of start realizing like, I better talk about this because it's a big part, so it doesn't happen without that. Or maybe you don't like keep your sanity intact without the faith piece of it playing such a big role. So yeah, that was really encouraging. Funny thing about Joe is I've known him since high school, and we have not been in touch for ages. And to watch Joe's metamorphosis is just really cool. He just has a really impactful life story. I will tell you, if there's one thing that has not changed about him, it is the energy that he brings to the room. You can't be bored or unhappy around Joe, because he is infectious, and just lots of energy, and I like love that about him. It's very authentic, like it is just a thread of who he is, and so it's no surprise that he is the idea factory that he is. One of the things that we've touched on this, but the staying curious piece that hit me as well. Partially, I think because we say that within the agency so much, like just stay curious and ask questions. Ask questions so you can understand in a deeper level, and it also helps you to not make assumptions. If you just come up with a question, and then staying curious is there's a lot of beauty to it. And one of the things that I've really noticed about all three of the guests that we're talking about today is that the common thread between all of them is that they all have a real heart to help other people. And and one of the things I know that Joe has said is that he just has a heart to improve lives of people around him, whether it's cutting their lawn or helping them with business coaching, or all the other things he has going on. But but having a heart to help and putting others in a better place, like that's, you know, kind of ties back into Lindsay's like wanting to be an advocate, wanting to, you know, passionately show up for her clients. So you know, it's a fun thread to see. And I think if anything, you know, it kind of gives you hope back into humanity a little bit, because you see people that have that are in a situation that are able to really impact others with correct heart postures. And I think that's you can't put a price tag on that. It's like
for sure
want to do business with.
Yeah, and like I feel like too, like, you know, and this isn't in every industry, and it's showing like within these podcasts where like we're disruptors, like everybody is a disruptor because we're changing the norm. Like in insurance, we're not the baggy khaki pants.
You're not.
And then and just being an advocate like in law, and just being intentional and just really sharing and helping, because that's everyone's gonna only move forward if we all come together. Which it kind of comes to, well, let's all, you know, be together, but like really that's what it is. And being the disruptors in your industry, it can take you to places that you never knew that you could go.
Right. It's true. It's very true.
He also touched on things being unorganized can become very chaotic. And when you notice those things, you know, you become vulnerable. And that is how you grow. And I think that is so true. And trying, you know, I think the noticing that things are unorganized and or that they're starting to become chaotic, that can really, that's where you grow, and that's where you see that growth. And I just think that's super important. To keep your eyes open, try and step back every so often and notice those things.
Yes, absolutely. So agree. Well, last we have Alexia Federico, and I had a lot of fun talking with Alexia. Her path, I had not met her before, and so I was just really fascinated to hear how she arrived to where she is now, and the road that, you know, just what she had to go through to learn. She learned the hard way. And again, the heart to help other people that are in similar situations, so they don't have to have all the curveballs and the road be as long as it was for her. So what were your guys' takeaways and ahas with Alexia?
Yeah, for me, like I felt like I love like holistic medicine and like really learning more about it, and just like in how like getting from where she started, like we said, and then to where she is now. It's really cool to see and to really learn people's stories. Actually, after listening to that, I went and followed her on social because it's so intriguing. I was like, oh my gosh, like this is actually really cool and very relatable, where, you know, she's working with people that have autoimmune diseases, and I mean, tons of people I know have them, and I'm like, gosh, like this is actually really helpful. Like I didn't think like that this would be something that like I would be really interested in listening about, even though I love learning about that kind of stuff. And just really seeing too, like, you know, as like when she was sick and navigating her illness and those types of things too, but also like staying strong and then finding her path and being able to help others. I just really, it was nerding out.
Yeah, it's super fun to hear. And that's one thing I wrote down, that, you know, from her personal experience, she took that and she didn't dwell on it. She used that to grow. Like you said, Caitlin, helping others. I think it's so fun to hear people when they do things like that, that, you know, it probably would have been really easy for her to just sit and dwell on what had happened to her, but instead she took it and grew with it.
Yeah, she didn't turn into a victim, right? Which is huge. And I mean, I think you have a choice to make in those moments, right? Like, are you going to use this as part of your story and kind of your launching point, or are you going to use this to create a story of, you know, victimhood and woe is me type of mentality? And it's each individual's choice. But yeah, one of the things I wrote down about her was she did such a beautiful job of, taking that, situation where she wasn't heard and she knew there was a problem and she wasn't taken seriously. I wrote down turning pain into purpose, and she was not heard, but now she has the tools to be able to be a voice for other people. As it pertains to her health, and I think there's probably a lot of people that can relate to not being heard in certain systems. And she has, through the hard way, learned lessons that she's able to now really bless other people with healing of their bodies, which I think is amazing. The other part that I was really impressed with by her, because I think, holistic medicine can get so broad that it gets kind of confusing. What modalities, and then sometimes you're like, okay, should I be doing 5 of these modalities, and then you're spending $5,000 a month, it just can be confusing. And she's so niched down and very, very specific about what she helps with, that I just felt like that really, that being as targeted as she was is just a huge, it's just such a great thing for the people that are looking for her. The people that are looking for her, when they find her, they immediately will know this is the person I want to talk to. It's not going to be ambiguous like some other things.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yep. So, I want to talk a little bit about what is next coming up with Unraveling Success. So we will continue to have guests on Unraveling Success as we always have. But now that we are a little bit more than a year, almost a year and a half into the podcast, one of the quotes that I've always read is success leaves clues. And I love that because it's true. And so we have had enough guests on that we're going to kind of go through and sift through and identify what some of the key success habits are, and we're going to be doing individual episodes then with using a success habit at a time and taking a little bit deeper dive into what those habits are, as we've discussed with guests. And so maybe some tools, maybe some books, maybe some resources, downloadables, all that kind of stuff that if there's a specific habit that you're looking at honing in or expanding on, that you can use these episodes to help you in those areas. So that's what's coming up on Unraveling Success. Thank you for being with us today. We always love chatting together anyway. So when we can do it in front of you all, that's even better. So for information on Aspire, feel free to check in our notes on this episode. We would always love to help you with your insurance needs.